There need to be some lessons for the future here. Republicans seem to have a very, very nasty habit. And the nasty habit is that they keep going back to the well of magic. They keep thinking, okay, well, but people will hate Democrats so much that we can nominate literally anybody. We can nominate that dude on a street corner. I mean, sure, he's shouting at the sky and he's scratching at himself with one of those weird back scratcher things. And sure, he's got fleas and rabies, but that guy, anyone could beat Biden, right? I mean, anyone can beat these Democrats. I mean, these Democrats, these woke idiots, anyone could beat them. We could run dog turkey. Wrong. You have to run actual good, responsible candidates. Learn your lesson, guys. And lest you think, again, that this is some sort of out-of-the-box strategy, that there's no evidence to back this. There's sort of no counter-example to what happened with Republicans last night. There were several. I mentioned Brian Kemp already. But the big counterexample of the night is there was one area of the country where there was indeed not just a red trickle, not just a red tide, not just a red wave, a red tsunami. One specific area of the country, can you name it? One specific area of the country where the Republicans cleaned up, where there wasn't a vote in sight that they didn't get. That area, you guessed it, is Florida. In Florida, the Republicans did heavy damage, serious damage. In fact, because Florida reports its results fast and in clean fashion, like the polls closed at 7 p.m. in most of Florida except for the Panhandle, by like 8 p.m. Eastern last night, we knew the results in Florida. And that's why there was a lot of feeling in the Republican side of the aisle. I mean, we were covering it live last night at Daily Wire. Plus, there's a feeling that this might be a red wave. But it turns out it was not a red wave. It was just that Florida Republicans know what they are doing. And Ron DeSantis is an excellent candidate who is good at governing and then does the culture war issues as the icing on the cake. Wipeout for Democrats in Florida. Absolute wipeout. On every possible level, a wipeout. I mean, let's take a look at some of these results. Let's start with the governor's race. This was supposed to be a relatively close race when this thing first started. Recall, Ron DeSantis won his last race for governor against Andrew Gillum, a gay meth addict. He won that race by 30,000 votes. 30,000. In a state that has, 7 million votes per election, 6, 7, 8 million votes per election. He won by 30,000 votes, 0.4% of the vote. In this particular election, Ron DeSantis won 59% of the vote. 59%. So he went from winning by 0.4% of the vote to winning by 1 bajillion votes. Like the numbers don't exist anymore. We've run beyond the scope of actual mathematics in terms of how big this victory was for Ron DeSantis. 59.4% of the vote for Ron DeSantis. He beat Charlie Crist last night like a rug. He beat him by 1.5 million votes, 4.6 million to 3.1 million. So from a 30,000 vote victory to a 1.5 million vote victory 4 years later. That is evidence of organization on the ground. That is evidence of excellent governance. That is evidence that you can convert independents to your own side. It is evidence that you have turned a purple state into a bright red, blazing red state, Tennessee, Utah-like red state. This state is not on the board for Democrats, and that is because there is no substitute for good candidates who are good at their jobs and engage less in the culture war crazy than they do in the actual governance of their state, and certainly don't engage in stupid issues that are going to be counterproductive. Ron DeSantis is a culture warrior, no question. He will fight critical race theory. He will fight woke. In his victory speech last night, he said that Florida is where woke comes to die. He is correct. Here was DeSantis.
We have embraced freedom. We have maintained law and order. We have protected the rights of parents. We have respected our taxpayers, and we reject woke ideology. We fight the woke in the legislature. We fight the woke in the schools. We fight the woke in the corporations. We will never, ever surrender to the woke mob. Florida is where woke goes to die.
Okay, so, yes, he fights the woke. Also, he's really good at being a governor. You can do both those things. So there are a lot of people on my side of the aisle, a lot of Republicans, a lot of conservatives. They're like, why can't Republicans message on this stuff? The answer is because, again, don't let the icing be the cake. You can't have the cake without the icing. Otherwise, it's not a very good cake. But you can also not have the icing without the cake is nothing. The icing without the cake is Don Baldock. The icing without the cake is Doug Mastriano. The icing with the cake is Ron DeSantis. And the cake without the icing is Mike DeWine. Okay, so what that sounds like, actually, is that the main thing Republicans have to do is focus on not alienating every voter in sight by embracing silliness, by embracing things that the American voters do not care about. There's a lot of talk in the election lead up about how Democrats were ignoring what the voters wanted. And that's true. Many Democrats did ignore what the voters wanted. But as it turns out, the Joe Biden pitch, and Joe Biden is going to be the nominee now for the Democrats in 2024. We'll get to the impact on Biden and Trump in a second. Joe Biden pushing for the democracy talk, it turns out that wasn't about threats to democracy. It was about, do you trust these Republicans to govern? And when Republicans act as though they can't be trusted with governance, they don't win. And when they can be trusted with governance, they win, and they win enormous. They win huge. Are you still giving your money to woke razor companies that hate your values, see masculinity as toxic, and think you should teach your daughter to shave her beard? There is indeed a better way. Jeremy's razors are 100% real and 100% woke-free. The premium handle has more heft than the left. The razor head pivots without caving and has 6 blades that are sharper than truth. Those other razor companies keep virtue signaling to the totalitarian left and using your money to do it. But you don't have to let them. When you buy Jeremy's razors, you aren't just making Jeremy richer, you're making the whole left poorer. 75,000 people have already made the switch. Visit jeremy'srazors.com. Get 40% off your Founders Series Shave Kit today. That's jeremy'srazors.com. Jeremy's Razors. Shut up and shave. If you look at a map of Florida, the results here are absolutely astonishing. They are. I mean, I'm looking right now at the map of Florida and how it went in this gubernatorial race. And Ron DeSantis won Miami-Dade. You can't win Miami-Dade if you're a Republican. That's not possible. He won Miami-Dade. If you look at the exit polling, Ron DeSantis won Hispanics outright. Outright. The GOP picked up several congressional seats in Florida. National Republicans saw Tampa Bay's open seats, according to the Tampa Bay Times, as a path toward reclaiming control of Congress. And they achieved it. Florida is now sending 20 Republicans to the U.S. House of Representatives. That is an increase of 4. Remember, Republicans needed to pick up 5 in order to take the House. So Florida alone almost put the Republicans over the top. The rest of the country combined is going to provide the Republicans with maybe another 4 to 10 seats. Combined. The state of Florida carried it last night. It was Lee Zeldin in New York winning those House seats. That's 3. And then it is the Republicans in Florida picking up 4. That is 7. So that means that more than half of the Republican gains, in all likelihood, are going to come from those 2 states alone, with competent people running, Florida and New York. And by the way, yeah, again, it wasn't just DeSantis. It was up and down the ballot. First of all, Charlie Crist had to concede because Charlie Crist has now run for every single party, and there are no more parties for him to, like, he's now looking for a pool party to run to, because just bad night for Charlie Crist. Here was Crist acknowledging that, in fact, his strategy of alienating every independent and Republican voter was a bad strategy.
Thank you. Thank you. First and foremost, I want to give a good congratulations to Governor DeSantis on his reelection. That's okay. That's okay.
That's okay. That's okay, guys. That's okay. I'm just going to read you a couple stats on how well DeSantis did last night. The Cuban vote in 2018 went 67% for Ron DeSantis. There are a bunch of people out there saying, well, when he wins the Hispanic vote, you just mean Cubans. Nope, that is not what I mean. He won 67% of the Cuban vote in Florida in 2018. He won 68% of the Cuban vote in Florida in 2022. So Cubans voted Republican, like they always vote Republican in the state of Florida. The Puerto Rican vote in 2018 went 34% for Ron DeSantis. It went 55% for Ron DeSantis. That is a shift of 21 points among Puerto Rican voters in the state of Florida. Good governance. Ain't no substitute for it. Among other Latinos, 34% voted for the Republican in 2018. 50% voted for Ron DeSantis in 2022. Candidate quality, gubernatorial standards, being disciplined in your races. You know, the things that make up like the basic mathematics of politics, they still apply. Yelling at the sky is not, in fact, a strategy. And if Republicans wish to actually win broad victories over the course of the next decade or so, they're going to need to put away the childish playthings with which they have been preoccupied. I'm talking about the House leadership. I'm talking about the presidential leadership. That means that discipline needs to be in order here. There will be some opportunity for Republicans. There are going to be some silver linings here, which we'll get to in just 1 second. But here's the bottom line. When it comes to Florida, Florida broke the Democrats. It broke them. All right, guys, the rest of the show is continuing right now. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll be getting into the state of the economy. We'll also be getting into how the different groups voted last night. If you're not a member, click the link in the description and join us.